Thanks so much, Ardita. Thanks for the great introduction. Hello, everybody. Great to have you here. My name is Phil Dillard. I'm originally from Philadelphia. I live in San Francisco, lived all across the US, and you can read a little bit about my bio, but I'll tell you a little bit about how I ask people to introduce themselves. I say, who are you? Where are you from? Why does that matter? What are you about and why are you here? So I gave you who I am and where I'm from. Why it matters is because I came from different place. Everybody came from a little different place in our crew. And we came from a relatively unassuming American family, but have come to this place where my parents and my grandparents could not even understand what I'm doing here now and some of the things we're about. What am I about? I'm about ushering in the future economy where impact and financial returns meet, where we actually build mission-driven organizations to solve tricky problems like UN Sustainable Development Goals, and we do that in a way that's impactful, scalable, and profitable. I want to make 100 impact unicorns in the next year, and I want to talk to you guys a little bit today about how I think 5G fits into this story in a way that maybe you didn't think that it would, right? And I start with something really simple. I talk about rainforest. Rainforest is easy to grab onto because everybody, especially when you're walking down the street in Helsinki and it's 15 degrees Fahrenheit out and it's a little chilly, and you think, wow, it would be nice to be somewhere warm and green and delicious like this, right? And we know what's going on with the rainforest. We know that we have problems with deforestation. But you might say, well, what is it? How are we going to do this with technology, right? What is it we know that we don't know? Why are people still cutting down rainforest when we know that it's a challenge, right? And I use rainforest as a really easy example because first we have a great nonprofit partner in this organization called the Rainforest Partnership, they're working locally with local and indigenous populations. We're working with technology organizations and with investors to figure out really what's the problem. And over the course of the past year, we figured out the biggest rationale for the problem, right? Now, Rainforest Partnership, where you see all the butterflies, these are different places in the world where they've identified and they've started working on projects to understand how to make a change in the environment, how to make a change working with the local people to prevent people from doing this, right? We don't want to see the trees get cut down. And one of the things I like to say is we never understand. No one ever looks at that stand of trees from that beautiful spot that we showed in the first slide and says, gosh, I really need to cut down these trees today, right? People do it for an economic reason. They do it because of ignorance. They do it because they don't understand the value of the standing forest. And how do you communicate the value of the standing forest? Well, one of the first things I didn't talk about was the people who were living in the forest. You saw a little bit about them if you read the text in the slide, right? There are people who are living there who they see the value of the standing forest. There are people who extract the value of that all the time in the drugs that we use, in some of the fabrics that we use. Everybody who's used things who's eaten food that's kind of packaged, it probably has palm oil in it, right? A lot of it has soy in it. And if you've used your cell phones, right? Everybody here has used cell phones where the materials for the battery comes from mining in places like this. And everybody's eaten meat, right? So I've just talked about the 4 major criteria for driving deforestation, right? Soy, palm oil, mining, meat, right? And some of that's, it's ag for meat, right? So what we need to understand is a better way to actually use the land on the planet to feed ourselves, to clothe ourselves, and also to extract the value of it in a way that's equitable, right? That gives value, and it's not some sort of soft, fluffy thing. It's a thing that says the people who lived on the land for generations, the people whose country it is who want to improve their standard of living, they need to be able to do that, but we need to do that in a smart way. So what's missing? What's been missing has been the data. What's missing has been the way to understand actually what's going on in the rainforest, to know that some sort of intervention that we make by planting a bunch of trees or by cutting down certain trees and replanting the wrong types of trees, or by the things that have happened already in climate change that have altered this landscape for good, those sort of things are the challenges that we need to understand, right? So by going out with some things like 5G and leveraging AI, whether it's satellites or drones or sensors or all these other technologies, these things can give us the data so we actually know what the good interventions are, what the results of them are, so that we can replicate that, not just in one rainforest in the Amazon, but in different parts of the world where we want to protect the forest or we want to reforest. So this is a little bit of what we're about. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the solutions that we know that we've already started working with, and whether these are projects, everything I'm showing you here is a real live project. That's something that's we're being involved with right now today. This is a regenerative sandalwood forest in Australia. Well, now, I don't know how many people know what sandalwood is. No, okay. In certain parts of the world, sandalwood is sacred, right? The oil, the wood. There's a lot of medicinal purposes for the wood, but sandalwood in the wild is dying out, is becoming extinct, right? So in order to actually have a plantation that is not monoculture, because monoculture is one of the reasons that we have all this runoff, we have all these problems in the planet. So you do it in a regenerative way. What do? These are relatively straight trees, but there are shrubs, there's ground cover, there's soil, this is a net, we believe, a net carbon sink as you're growing these trees over their lifetime before you harvest the trees. So, but the ability to tell exactly how much and quantify how much carbon is captured and how you can actually effectively and sustainably harvest some of the sandalwood while you replant the next and have a very good environmental approach for doing that. We don't have all the data for it yet, but we're actually working on how to capture that, how to monitor it, and how to put that into a financial market. So you can actually have futures contracts on carbon capture as you're growing more, or you could really understand this in a very visceral way to qualify the value of the investment. What's another example of what's out here? This is a picture from a kelp forest, also in Australia, but this is just convenient that it's actually in Australia, from a different guy. His name's Brian. And Brian's doing something called deep ocean permaculture. And what he's saying is, well, you can grow on land with regenerative agriculture, and you can capture carbon out of the environment, right? But you can also grow in the water, because the ocean is a big sink of carbon, or at least it used to be before we did some things that aren't so great to it, right? So with regenerative agriculture on land, I'm preventing things from going into the ocean, chemicals from going into the ocean, acidification, all those sorts of things, right? Now, if I grow seaweed in the ocean like this, in a regenerative way, I can actually recreate those areas, those habitats that have been damaged. I get marine life. I get fast-growing kelp that sucks carbon out of the atmosphere that I can use for food, I can use for pharmaceuticals, I can use for clothing, and if I really have a whole lot of it and I don't have anything to do with it, I can tow it out to sea and drop it to the bottom of the ocean, and is now a deep carbon sink, right? Why do we care about this if we're talking about 5G and AI and all these different technologies? Well, we need to be able to map this massive ecosystem on the planet and understand these impacts and capture this data. It's also important, I think, for people who are trying to figure out who they are, what they're about, what they care about. If I live in Helsinki and I think this is awesome, I might feel like I'm a fish out of water, right? But I wanted people to understand, to be inspired by wherever you are in the capital stack. You've heard a bunch of different stories about where technology can take you. Wherever you are in that stack, you're valuable, you're needed. This is a massive greenfield story, right? This is acres of diamonds. This is where 100 impact unicorns could come in the next 5 years, not less the next 10. So why am I dream big? What are my why nows? Well, okay. It's a critical time in the environment, right? For UN Sustainable Development Goals. Everybody knows about the storms. Everybody knows about the challenges that we're seeing. We know that they're going to get worse, and urgently we need to address them now. This is a great opportunity for this. It's a one-in-a-lifetime transition in this economic story, because literally every week we talk with people on 4 continents about these different issues when we get on our social audio or different shows that we talk about. And everyone's talking about, how do we fix capitalism? How do we change the economic system so that it can work for everyone? This is a massive transition, a massive creation of new wealth. Done well, it's not challenging existing wealth, it's net new to everyone. And what are the opportunities? Well, hundreds of force sector mission-driven companies that can come out of this. And I'm just scratching the surface when I talk about the rainforest, because there are a number of different areas of impact. Where do we focus? We focused on waste to value, regenerative agriculture. We focus on a couple other really important areas where we know that there are some things that we can do, and whether we're doing it there or whether we're doing it in rural Finland, where we know that the paper and pulp industry has gone down, and we need to come up with new innovations to give those folks the education, the access, the opportunity, the new industries to make that part of the world thrive. Just like in the US, these things happen in our backyards and around the corner, and they're also effective, just as effective, all the way around the world. So I am going to pause there and give the mic to my great colleague, Bobby Amiri, to continue the conversation.
All right.